I want to start by setting a very specific scene for you.
Yeah.
It's 2002. You are waking up on a Saturday morning. You grab a bowl of cereal that is probably like 40% sugar, and you tune into Kids WB.
Right.
You're expecting the usual stuff, superheroes, maybe some talking animals. But instead, you get dropped into this Southern California suburb where the laws of physics are just different.
Different is putting it mildly. You're talking about a world where the school principal, the local dog, the mailman, they're all wearing wrestling masks.
And they never take them off.
Never.
Exactly. We are talking about Mucha Lucha. It's a show that I feel like a lot of people have this vague fever dream memory of. Like, wait, was that the show with the flea?
Yeah, that's the one.
But looking at the research we've pulled today, this isn't just a nostalgic trip. This show was actually a massive gamble that kind of changed the way cartoons are made.
It really was. It's so easy to look back now and just see another colorful Y2K cartoon. But Mucha Lucha is a legitimate historical milestone.
Okay, how so?
It was the very first animated television series intended for children to be created using Macromedia Flash.
Okay, let's unpack that, because I think for a modern audience, Flash just sounds like old internet.
Right, like old games or something.
Yeah, we think of grainy YouTube videos or those, games on Newgrounds. Why was it such a big deal for a TV network to use it?
You have to understand the stigma at the time. In the early 2000s, broadcast animation was pretty binary. You either paid a fortune for hand-drawn cell animation, think Batman, the animated series, or early SpongeBob.
The expensive stuff.
The really expensive stuff. Or you were experimenting with high-end 3D CGI. Flash was seen as the cheap option. It was for low bandwidth, for dial-up connections.
So pitching a network show built entirely in this web tool must have sounded insane to executives.
Oh, completely. They probably thought it would look like a screensaver. The perception was that Flash just couldn't handle broadcast resolution. It looked flat, it looked jerky.
It never worked.
Mucha Lucha was the proof of concept that changed the whole industry pipeline. The creators used vector-based animation, which lets you scale images infinitely without losing quality. They proved you could get that crisp, thick-lined look on a TV budget.
And it didn't just work. It became the standard. Reading through the production legacy, this show basically built the highway that later hits like Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends and My Little Pony drove on.
It streamlined the whole process. It moved animation away from physical cells and into a purely digital workflow. So even if you've never seen a single episode, if you like modern 2D animation, you kind of owe a debt to this show.
That's the technical side, which is huge.
Yeah.
But we have a mission to explore the world itself today, because Luchaville it's one of the weirdest fictional towns I've ever encountered.
It is delightful. The entire society is structured around Lucha Libre. The kids attend the foremost world-renowned international school of lucha.
Which is a mouthful, but I love it.
And the magic system, if you can call it that, is fascinating. It's all based on signature moves. In this universe, wrestling moves aren't just, grappling or throwing. They are metaphysical. If you call out a move name, you physically transform to embody that move.
That's my favorite part. It's like taking a pun and making it a superpower. If your move is the spinning top, you don't just spin, you become a human top. It adds this layer of surrealism where language dictates reality.
It also tells us a lot about the characters. The show focuses on the three Masqueridas, and they are textbook examples of how to build a balanced trio. You have Ricochet, the protagonist.
10 years old. He thinks of himself as the bravest.
But the source material always highlights his fatal flaw. He leaps before he looks.
Classic.
He is the engine of chaos. He wants to be a hero so badly that he usually ignores the consequences until it's way too late.
Then you have his foil, Buena Girl. She's the rule follower.
She's the superego, if we're getting psychological. She is 9, incredibly capable, but the creators gave her this great flaw where her strict adherence to the code of masked wrestling makes her kind of arrogant.
Oh, totally. She can't stand it when people do things the wrong way.
She's the kid who reminds the teacher to collect the homework.
Yes, but she's also the one who actually knows how to get them out of trouble.
Exactly.
And then we have the Flea. You cannot talk about this show without talking about the Flea.
I feel like the Flea is the character everyone remembers, even if they forgot the actual plot.
He's 8 years old. He refers to himself in the third person, and his defining trait is just
Filth.
He is the pigpen of this universe.
Yeah.
But what I love about the character breakdown is that his gross habits are his superpowers. His suit is supposed to be white, but it's permanently stained brown. He never bathes.
Which is gross, for sure. But looking at the notes, there's a surprisingly deep layer to him. He's actually the most nervous member of the group.
That's the key. The filth is almost a defense mechanism. He is terrified of everything, but because he's so repulsive to his enemies, he ends up being a useful ally. It's a great subversion of the cowardly lion trope. But speaking of allies, there's one character detail in these notes that I think is the single smartest piece of writing in the whole show, and that is El Rey.
Oh, absolutely. This is where the show gets incredibly meta. Usually, a hero has a mentor, a wise old master, a spirit guide. Ricochet has an action figure.
A little plastic toy. It's an action figure of a supreme, undefeated Mexican wrestler, which is a clear nod to the real-life legend El Santo.
And he carries it in his backpack. But it's not just a prop. It talks. It's fully sentient.
And it is not a supportive mentor.
Not at all. It calls him
Yeah.
Chico, it insults him, it calls him a disgrace. It's this tiny, aggressive plastic man living in his backpack telling him he's not good enough.
But here's the layer that I think goes over kids' heads, but hits hard for adults. The show explicitly acknowledges that El Rey is mass-produced.
Right. There are other ones.
There are episodes where other kids have their own El Rey toys, and those toys also come to life and cause trouble.
So his conscience is literally a piece of merchandise.
Exactly. It's a commentary on consumerism, right inside a cartoon that is designed to sell you toys. Ricochet is taking moral guidance from a product that isn't even unique to him.
It's brilliant satire.
It really is. It adds this layer of cynicism to the world that balances out the bright colors. But let's go back to what we started with, the violence issue. We established that the network, Kids WB, was very hesitant about a wrestling show.
They rejected the initial pitch. The sources are really clear on this. They looked at the concept and said, this is too violent for our demographic. Which, makes sense. It's a show about fighting.
So how do the creators, Eddie Mort and Lili Chen, get around that? You can't have Lucha Libre without people, grabbing each other.
Well, the solution was in the visual guides. Lili Chen had to create this specific set of rules for the animators and for the network's standards and practices department.
Okay.
They had to prove that what was happening on screen wasn't fighting, it was choreography.
That is a masterclass in framing. It's not violence, it's dance.
It really is. By leaning into that exaggerated flash animation style, the transformations, the impossible physics, they argued that these weren't harmful acts of violence.
Because no one is really getting hurt.
Right. Because the characters transform into objects or elemental forces, nobody is actually getting punched in the face. They're getting hit by a metaphor.
And honestly, watching it, you don't feel like you're missing the impact. It feels so energetic. You don't realize they're pulling their punches because the visuals are so loud.
And that energy isn't just visual. We have to talk about the soundscape because this is another area where the show was just punching way above its weight class for a Saturday morning cartoon.
The music is incredible. I was looking at the list of licensed tracks, and it's not your standard generic cartoon rock.
No, it's culturally specific. They didn't just want it to sound vaguely Latin. They went out and licensed tracks from massive artists. The theme song alone was performed by Chico Barrio.
Which immediately sets a very specific tone. It's cumbia, it's super energetic.
But look at the other names in the production notes. They had tracks from Café Quijano, specifically Desde Brazil. They used music from Los Lobos, Good Morning Aslan.
I saw Cumbia Poder by Celso Piña on the list. And Tito Nieves.
These are legends. By including cumbia, rock en español, and pop from artists like Plastico, they were doing serious world building. They were signaling to the audience, especially the Latino audience, that this wasn't a caricature.
It was a celebration.
Exactly. It gave Luchaville a sonic identity that felt lived in.
It respects the roots of the subject matter. It's not just wrestling is funny, it's Lucha Libre is a culture.
Precisely. And of course, when you have a show about wrestling with distinct characters, the end goal is always the same.
You want to sell the toys in the real world.
You want to sell the toys.
And I remember seeing these. Jack Specific released the line in 2004, but looking at the description of the toys, they were kind of weird.
They leaned into the surrealism of the show. The key gimmick was the mix-a-lot figures.
Right. You can pull their limbs off.
You could swap body parts between characters, which, again, fits the transformation theme of the show, even if it is a little bit body horror when you think about it.
I'm going to put the Flea's head on Ricochet's body. That's the stuff of nightmares.
It is a bit grotesque, but kids loved it. They also had the signature move figures and the wrestling ring. But the merchandise story actually gets more interesting when you look outside the U.S. The sources mention a specific promotion in Mexico that was just huge.
The Sabrita snacks.
Yabritas. In 2005, they ran this massive promotion involving Tassos.
For those who don't know, Tazos are basically pogs, right? Full of plastic discs.
Yep. And the scale of this collection was absurd. There were 230 different Mucha Lucha Tazos to collect. They had a classic series and a rematch series.
230. That is a lot of potato chips you have to eat.
It speaks to how popular the show was in Mexico. It resonated because it was reflecting the culture back in a fun, stylized way.
Right.
But while the snacks were successful, the digital side of things has a bit of a tragic story.
You mean the video games.
Right. So naturally, you'd assume a wrestling show makes for a great fighting game. And we did get a Game Boy Advance game Masqueradas of the Lost Code. That came out. It exists.
But there's supposed to be a console game.
A PlayStation 2 game titled Misterioso Grande. It was in development. It was slated for a 2004 release, and it was going to use cell shading to mimic that Flash look.
Oh, which would have looked incredible on the PS2. That cell-shaded style like Wind Waker or Beautiful Joe, it ages really well.
It would have. But the creators couldn't find a publisher. The project just died on the vine. It's one of those what could have been artifacts for collectors. We have screenshots, but we'll never play it.
That's a shame. I feel like a cell-shaded wrestling game with these physics would be a cult classic today.
Absolutely. And speaking of what could have been, we need to discuss the comics. Because apparently the universe expanded into print, briefly.
DC Comics, right.
Yes, a 3-issue miniseries in the summer of 2003. And what's interesting here is that they were written by Eddie Mort, one of the show's co-creators.
So this wasn't just a licensed cash grab written by a freelancer. This was canon.
It feels very canon. The story titles are dead giveaways. El Rey Come Home, It's All Buena, and Limbo of the Lost Luchadors. It suggests there were more stories to tell in this world than the TV show had time for.
Well, that brings us to the biggest what if in the entire pile of notes. The revival that never happened.
This one hurts a little. The sources detail a pitch from 2014 titled Mucha Lucha, Para Siempre.
Para Siempre forever.
The concept was to bring back Ricochet, Buena Girl, and the Flea, but as teenagers.
See, that is such a compelling hook. We saw them as these little kids at a massive school, seeing them navigate high school or young adulthood while still having to wear the masks. That's a totally different show.
It changes the entire dynamic. The code of masked wrestling is cute when you're 10, but when you're 16, when you're trying to date or figure out your career or deal with real-world angst, that mask takes on a totally different meaning.
It's a metaphor for identity that just gets richer as you age.
Sadly, it wasn't produced. But it shows that the creators understood the depth of what they had built. They knew the core concept had legs beyond just Saturday morning slapstick.
At least the original show hasn't been lost to time.
No, Warner Bros. Has done a decent job of archiving it. In 2019, they finally remastered the series in high definition for streaming.
Which is important because, as we discussed, it's Flash. Flash scales infinitely. It should look perfect in HD.
And it does. It's available on Amazon Prime and HBO Max in Latin America. Though, a quick note for anyone looking it up. If you see Season 3 listed as Mucha Lucha, Gigante, don't be confused.
Okay.
That was just the rebrand for the final season.
Good catch. So when we step back and look at the whole picture here, what is the legacy? We have a show that was technically risky, culturally distinct, and battled censorship to even exist.
I think the legacy is twofold. Technologically, it proved that digital animation could work for TV. It broke the stigma of Flash. Without Mucha Lucha, the visual landscape of 2000s and 2010s cartoons looks very different.
And culturally?
It proved that specificity sells. You don't have to make a generic show to appeal to a global audience. You can make a show about Lucha Libre with Spanglish and Latin music and specific cultural references, and kids in the US and Europe and Asia will still love it because the characters are strong.
It didn't talk down to the audience.
Never.
I want to leave you with a thought based on that unproduced teenager season. In Luchaville, you are never seen without your mask. It is your face.
Right.
Think about the masks we wear in our own lives, our professional personas, our social media profiles. If Mucha Lucha had allowed its characters to grow up, would the mask have become a burden? At what point does the character you play stop being a game and start being a trap? And would Ricochet ever have worked up the courage to take it off?
That is the ultimate question. Sometimes the hardest wrestling match is the one you have with your own identity.
Something to think about. Thanks for exploring the ring with us today.
Adios, amigos.
I'll see you next time.